Well. It looks like tomorrow's the day. The day when the vote goes down that will tell us whether or not we're in a brand new era of tax surveillance and reporting. But I think this is only the first shot fired in what's going to turn out to be a long, protracted battle. Ready? Let's go. This amendment vote tomorrow centers around two things. One is a proof of work, proof of stake distinction that some are chalking up to incompetence, some are attributing to malice. The other item around the subsection C of the amendment is something else entirely. It appears to be a door purposefully left ajar to preserve every possible tool for regulators in an upcoming confrontation with DeFi. Good news first, we are now in the Alonzo Purple testnet phase. All kinds of partners are going to be jumping in there. It sounds like next week they are going to allow any developer who wants to jump into the Alonzo Purple testnet. You'll remember from way back when they first debuted this color-coded progress schedule that Purple was supposed to last, something like a month, including, what later got labeled as light purple and dark purple. And this puts us about on schedule for where IOHK tells us we should be. And that's some kind of an Alonzo, not some kind, but the Alonzo Hard Fork Combinator event. And it sounds to me like the first week of September. Charles is kind of hanging on to that like last day of August date, but I think that's going to be, it sounds to me like that's going to be that first week of September if all goes well. And it sounds like we're right on schedule. If Purple was to last a month, then that puts us right in that right at the end of that first week of September. So great news. Good job, IOHK. Early this morning, the Washington Post, which you probably already know is very widely read by policymakers in Washington, D.C., gave us a little background on what's really going on in Washington. Apparently on Thursday, Janet Yellen, Secretary of the Treasury, former head of the Fed, went to the senators and lobbied hard against the Wyden-Toomey-Lummis amendment to the infrastructure bill. She even went directly to Wyden, according to this article, and tried to lobby him. Apparently, Janet Yellen doesn't like what these rebel-rouser senators are doing. She's trying to get tough on crypto, not trying to let crypto off the hook. Going to be a tough enforcer against crypto. Those crypto hooligans will no longer be lurking in the shadows on Janet's watch. Shockingly, the 74-year-old Yellen's lobbying of Wyden in regards to cutting-edge technology was ineffective, with Wyden saying last night that the competing amendment was equivalent to a government-sanctioned safe harbor for the most climate-damaging form of crypto tech. And remember, this is an article that's probably going to be read by a lot of policymakers. So they're actually going to see this language. They're going to see this, a fellow senator, a fellow congressman in the case of people in the House, pointing out that this is a government-sanctioned safe harbor for the most climate-damaging form of crypto tech. And I think everybody within crypto and outside of crypto would probably agree with that. It's pretty hard to debate what he's saying right there. We also got little blurbs in the article like this from Daniel Hemmel, a law professor at the University of Chicago, who said the Warner Amendment puts a heavy thumb on the scale in favor of a more energy-intensive method of validating cryptocurrency transactions. It is surprising that a climate-conscious administration would endorse that. That's the policy conflict that jumped first into my mind. The second I saw the Washington Post tweet about the Biden administration endorsing the Portman-Warner Cinema amendment, the competing amendment, was that this is a really tough PR position for them to take, given that they obviously want to paint themselves as a very climate conscious administration. And Bitcoin has already been in the news a lot over it being the exact opposite of climate conscious. Finally, down below here, we get a little bit of a rebuttal from a former Obama administration economist, Jason Furman. Obviously, he would have been somebody who would have been working with people a lot like Janet Yellen, who was also in the Obama administration in the Fed, to the extent that you think the Fed is a part of any administration. And he said, it is important for Treasury to have the flexibility to regulate cryptocurrency players who try to evade taxes on the increases in the value of their coins, particularly given the potential for future and unforeseen innovation in the sector. And this is the part that's really going to raise people's ire. If the technology makes it impossible to know people's capital gains, then the technology should not exist, Furman said. It cannot just be the exchanges. You have to know from beginning to end how much someone paid for the coin, how much someone sold the coin for, and be able to match those two up. He's saying if a technology cannot do that, it should not exist. This guy is a former Obama administration economist. He's not that far off from Janet Yellen and all the people around her. This is what they think. They honestly think that the technology should not exist if it makes it impossible to know people's capital gains. You need to match that up in your head with where DeFi is today. He's talking about DeFi. It's also worth pointing out that Furman is talking about giving Treasury the flexibility to regulate, basically the tools to regulate, particularly given the potential for future and unforeseen innovations in the sector. He's saying that the Treasury and Yellen need these tools to fight the tomorrow war. And you'll notice Janet Yellen looks exactly like Chris Pratt. If Chris Pratt was a vampire's grandmother. I believe this was just supposed to be an easy opening shot. You can see down below here, the article points out last month, the White House and Senator Rob Portman agreed to a proposal to require increased tax compliance for cryptocurrency brokers as a way to help pay for the bipartisan infrastructure bill. This was convenient because they needed to pay for this bill. I think it was also supposed to be the easy opening shot in a larger strategy to bring cryptocurrency into regulation. And I think they thought it was going to be easy. And then when the Wyden-Toomey-Lummis amendment, when it became obvious that that was going to happen, I think they had to kind of swing into action because they knew all of a sudden there was going to be this pushback on this new trend of cryptocurrency regulation. And I think that was not a part of the administration's plan. So if that was supposed to be the easy shot before the real battle, what's the real battle? Maybe this bill introduced by Don Beyer, the Digital Asset Market Structure and Investor Protection Act, which we've covered in detail on this channel, is a comprehensive regulatory framework for cryptocurrencies. It involves if you've paid attention to this bill, there's some very striking features. Basically, the SEC and the CFTC are going to divide up the world, the top 90% of cryptocurrencies, and they're going to divide them up and call them basically securities or commodities, and that'll determine who regulates them. Obviously, securities, the SEC, commodities to the Commodity Future Trading Commission, CFTC. And it also does some other things, like basically give Janet Yellen carte blanche to regulate stablecoins however she wants, including to completely ban them to the exclusion of a US CBDC. This bill would also specifically authorize the Fed to create a US CBDC. So Jerome Powell would get to create a Fed coin. Janet Yellen would get to regulate every single stablecoin, including outright banning all of them. The CFTC and the SEC would divide up the rest of the crypto world and, regulate them just like securities and commodities. It's a very comprehensive bill. Nobody's paying attention to this bill because there's so much furor over the infrastructure bill. And part of that is because the infrastructure bill has been labeled a must-pass bill. For the administration, this is a bill that must pass. They're going to get it passed no matter what. And they have control of the House and the Senate through the vice president's vote to break the tie in the Senate. So people aren't paying attention to this bill, but maybe they should, because we have also seen rumors that Janet Darth Turtle Yellen here, love her black mask, is possibly behind the Don Beyer comprehensive crypto regulation bill. Okay, maybe not Janet Yellen specifically, but Treasury, she's the Secretary of Treasury, Darth Turtle running this. This is a Yahoo article containing some remarks from Congressman Tom Emmer. He's in the House of Representatives. He said, Don Beyer hasn't been involved in this space at all that I know of. Don Beyer is the sponsor of that bill, that comprehensive bill I just showed you. Don Beyer hasn't been involved in the space at all that I know of. And all of a sudden, he comes out with this proposal that will give the Federal Reserve complete control over creating central bank digital currency with all kinds of related authority to it. Call me suspicious if you want, but I think that sometimes someone at Janet Yellen's Treasury would call a longtime ally like Don Beyer and say, look, we really need to push back on these Republicans, said Emmer, a member of the Congressional Blockchain Caucus. Emmer's comments followed other comments from another member of the House of Representatives, Warren Davidson of Ohio, who on the infrastructure bill claimed that the Treasury Department had a hand in the crypto provisions. That's all some backroom stuff that we'll probably never know about. But all of this together, it sounds like Darth Turtle has been very, very busy. So let's unshackle our minds and allow ourselves to engage in wild speculation for a second. Let's assume Treasury did play a hand in all these crypto provisions, including the Portman-Warner Cinema provisions, which arguably are anti-proof of stake and seemingly definitely are anti-DeFi, with that exclusion of the omission of subsection C in the Portman-Warner Cinema version, the competing amendment. So if we look at the background of our Secretary of Treasury here, we see a lot of the things we expect. Born in 46, age of 74. We already know about a long career involving the Federal Reserve. And then we have the change in administration, 2018. The old people are out, new people are in, and the old people have to go find something to do. So in between Federal Reserve and Secretary of Treasury present, we have this 2018 to 2020 period. What did Darth Turtle do during this period? Down here in Wikipedia, we see this report. Between 2018 and 2020, Yellen had received over $7 million, 7 million USD, in speaking fees from financial companies such as Barclays, Citigroup, Goldman Sachs, and the hedge fund Citadel. That's a lot of money over the course of 3 years. That's a decent amount of money. You can buy a whole bunch of black turtle masks with $7 million. The other thing that these groups seem to have in common is that we've seen rumors of groups like this, institutions like these institutions who are paying these speaking fees, flirting with the idea of Bitcoin. What we don't see is a huge amount of talk about them engaging in a lot of stuff beyond Bitcoin. We don't see them engaging in, heavily engaged in the proof of stake world. If they're going to make an investment, it's probably going to be in Bitcoin first, which is proof of work. This doesn't look good. I mean, we can spin this however we want. The ex-head of the Federal Reserve has a lot of expertise, and the consumers, the primary, the biggest, highest paying consumers, that expertise, of course, are going to be financial institutions like these. Of course, that's the case. But also, if you had to ask yourself, okay, Goldman Sachs has a Bitcoin trading desk. They don't have like a proof of stake trading desk. If they were drafting this bill, if they were drafting this amendment, how would they draft that first section? They would probably draft it so that it creates a safe harbor for proof of work, for which they have a trading desk, Bitcoin, and leave out everything else. And that's exactly what we ended up with in this bill. And people are out there, making arguments that, this is just a poorly drafted amendment to the bill by Portman, Warner, and Sinema. And that really, maybe there's going to be regulatory interpretation of that comes to the obvious conclusion that proof of stake is the same as proof of work in terms of block validation. And so we should read into that clause, proof of stake as well, including, stake pool operators as in Cardano. But I can't help but come to the conclusion that if Goldman Sachs, who has a Bitcoin trading desk, was going to draft this bill, the bill would pretty much look like, not the bill, but the amendment. Actually, who knows, maybe the original bill too, but the amendment, the Portman Warner Sinema amendment, which seems to have been introduced after these Thursday activities, which the Washington Post is reporting include Yellen lobbying these senators, or at least Treasury lobbying the senators. That amendment would pretty much, in my mind, look exactly like the one we got. These are questions we'll never know the answers to, but in my mind at least, it doesn't hurt to discuss them. Talk to you tomorrow.